Hello and welcome to R.C.E. Kingston. With the recent announcements from Cedar Fair for their 2024 additions to their parks, it got me thinking about which coaster I would add to each Cedar Fair park if I had the final say. Now, I want to real quickly touch on a few rules I have set for myself to keep this video from being absolute nonsense. 1. These have to be in the realm of possibility for the park to actually get. Not every park has the space or budget for a B&M Giga or an RMC Hyper Hybrid. 2. The coaster needs to make sense in the park's lineup. So if a park already has a mock launch coaster, it wouldn't make sense for them to get a mock extreme spinner. 3. I am not limiting myself to the manufacturers that Cedar Fair works with. So that does mean that RMC and Intamin are on the table for these coasters. With all that out of the way, let's jump right in. Starting us off is Michigan's Adventure, which is easily the most neglected Cedar Fair park. What I would add to the park would be a Vekoma family Boomerang, along with a revamp of the kids area around it. As much as this park needs a new thrill coaster, I believe that the first step to improving the overall park experience will be to update the kids area with a new small-scale coaster, similar to what Kings Island is doing in 2024 with Snoopy's Soapbox Racers. I personally feel that putting a bit of effort into just making the kids area look nicer alongside the new coaster will bring back so much life to the area and the park as a whole, and possibly lead to more investments in the future. To give one other option with a bit of a higher capacity, I also think a Gerstlauer bobsled, similar to Tiki Waka at Wellby, Belgium, would be another great fit for this park. For Worlds of Fun, I'm giving them an RMC conversion of Timberwolf. As I was looking through the park's lineup, I realized that they actually had a really balanced ride lineup, but they are missing a true standout coaster. Now with the opening of Zambezi Zinger filling the spot of a family wooden coaster, I figured it was time to cut the cord on Timberwolf. An RMC Hybrid would not only fill the gap of a true standout coaster, but would also give the park some true sustained ejector airtime, all for a relatively low price point. This would also give them a ride that with more hang-time focused inversions, as opposed to the more traditional inversions on Patriot and Boomerang. If they don't want to go with RMC, I could also see an Intamin Hot Racer working really well due to the park not having a launch coaster. What Valleyfair needs is a modern inverting coaster, seeing as the only coaster in the park that inverts is their Aero Looper Corkscrew. I think that a B&M Flawless, around the same size as Batman, The Dark Knight at Six Flags New England, would work perfectly here. This will give the park a new, modern looping coaster that is super smooth, while also providing a moderately intense and thrilling ride experience. Personally, I could see the ride being around 120 to 140 feet tall, and having 5 or 6 inversions, including a vertical loop, zero G-roll, and interlocking corkscrews, as well as featuring a revamped train design that features vest restraints to avoid any headbanging. Another option would be a B&M invert similar to Ozlris at Park Asterix, since it would also fill the inverting coaster gap, as well as it would give the park a new and modern inverted coaster, which is a much more complete ride than their Impulse coaster. The final of the small-scale Cedar Fair parks is Dorney Park, and after their brand new B&M dive coaster opens, I think it would be time for a new large-scale family coaster. It's for this reason that I would add a Vekoma-launched family coaster similar to Big Bear Mountain to the park. As of right now, there are only 2 true family coasters at the park, as well as no traditional launch coasters. The closest they have is an Intamin Impulse. So a multi-launch family coaster would fill 2 large gaps in the park's lineup, have maybe 2 or 3 launches, a few moments of floater airtime, and some moderately intense helixes, and I think it would be an absolute smash hit at the park. The coaster would also have a very high hourly throughput, which would keep the wait time short. The park could also put some loose theming and nice landscaping to make the coaster really look great. If they want something a bit smaller, then I also think a mock spinning coaster like Sierra Sidewinder at Knott's Berry Farm would be another good fit at the park. Next up is Knott's Berry Farm, and this park was kind of difficult to figure out due to them not really having any gaps in their lineup, but in the end I ended up deciding on a Gravity Group family wooden coaster. The reason I went with this is because the park only has one other wooden coaster with Goldstriker, and well, that isn't exactly a family-friendly coaster, so I think it'll be smart to bring a new family coaster to get the kids familiar with how a wooden coaster feels. Gravity Group family wooden coasters are filled with airtime and have some great pacing for their size, which makes them perfect for getting a kid used to forces like airtime and laterals, all for a rather low price tag. If they wanted something a bit more thrilling, they could also go with the Mach Power Splash, which will not only fill the gap of a swing launch, but also give the park a new water ride to help cool guests off on those hot California days. Kings Dominion was one of the easier parks to choose a coaster for them, due to them already having a massive plot of land to work with. I am giving Kings Dominion a B&M Surf Coaster to replace Volcano, the Blast Coaster. For one, the park only has 2 launch coasters with Flight of Fear and Indoor Spaghetti Bowl, and Backlot Stunt Coaster, a family launch coaster. 2. This will be different enough from Dominator, another B&M, to not feel redundant. The park could easily have the coaster themed to some sort of surf or tropical theme, and have the ride just twist and fly around the paths and buildings in the area, similar to how Pipeline and Surf Coaster interacts with the paths. Give the ride 3 or 4 inversions, some moderately intense turns, and some moments of floater airtime, and I think it'll be an absolute winner. A secondary option could be a Vekoma Wildcat like Fonix at Fair Up Summerland, featuring a collection of steep drops, airtime moments, and some whippy inversions. Only concern I have with that pick is the capacity, but that's fine when they just added a S&S free spin. Let's go back to California for the final medium-scale park and take a look at California's Great America. And I am going back to RMC to give Grizzly the Iron Horse treatment. Right now, I would say that you can make a very strong argument that California's Great America has one of the greatest 1-2 punches of any amusement park with Goldstriker and Railblazer. But if Grizzly was to get RMC'd, then I wholeheartedly believe that this park would easily have the best top 3 of any park in the state of California. When you have one of the world's greatest wooden coasters in the same park as a slow and boring wooden coaster, it makes that ride even less needed. So that's why RMC Grizzly would be the perfect coaster for California's Great America, seeing as we'll bring another world-class coaster to the park, on top of rounding out the park's lineup even more by having one less bad coaster. On top of all of that, the RMC hybrid conversions aren't super expensive when compared to the likes of B&M and Intamin. If they don't want an RMC hybrid, then I also think an Intamin vertical launch coaster would be a perfect fit here, since there is nothing else like it in the state. However, none of these will ever happen because the park is as good as dead. So, yeah. Next park, I guess. We are now at the final 4 parks, and these are the big boys of the Cedar Fair chain. Kicking things off is Canada's Wonderland. Now, this is a park that is really hard to choose a coaster for, because they will add almost anything. But if I had to pick, then I would give them a Gerstlauer Infinity Coaster similar to Karnan. This will be the perfect type of coaster for the park because there's nothing else like it anywhere in the area. The only other coaster with a vertical lift nearby is Tantrum at Darien Lake. And it would give the park a coaster with a beyond vertical drop as well. Give the coaster around 5 or 6 inversions, a few moments of airtime, and a sick lighting package similar to what Monster and Hangtime have, and the park would have a winner. The only downside I can think of is capacity, but that will be avoided with a separate load and unload station, along with a mid-course brake run. Another option would be a GCI family thrill coaster, similar to Invader and Zambezi Zinger. Something with a few moments of floater airtime, fast pacing, and semi-snappy transitions. This would not only give the park a new wooden coaster, but also fill the gap of a new transitional coaster between the kiddie coasters and massive B&Ms. Kings Island is debatably the most well-rounded park in the Cedar Fair chain when it comes to the coaster lineup. But there is one thing that they are missing, and that is a good looping coaster where the riders sit above the track. That is why I'm giving them a Vekoma Bermuda Blitz like Lech Coaster, featuring several super intense inversions, 2 or 3 moments of strong airtime, and super fast pacing. This will be the perfect next coaster for Kings Island. They could put it on the old plot of land where Vortex once sat, and even pay homage to the ride by having this coaster feature a Batwing inversion in the same place where Vortex's Batwing was. Give the coaster some nice theming, similar to what the park did with Orion and Banshee, and boy would this look nice. If they really wanted to get crazy, then they could even go to ImaScore and get them to make a banger theme song for the ride. But that's just fever dream Kingston talking. They could also go with a mock multi-launch if the park wanted a new launch coaster. The ride could focus more on hang time rather than super intense positive Gs, and have a similar style layout to Copperhead Strike. My only issue with this idea is the park already has Flight of Fear, which is a launched multi-looper, so I just worry about it feeling a bit redundant. Now we go to my home park of Carowinds, and this was the easiest pick on this list. Carowinds is getting a GCI wooden coaster. Now, this is the absolute perfect coaster for Carowinds, because it will not only fill the gap of a good wooden coaster. I said good wooden coaster. Get that garbage off my screen! The nerve to say Hurler is good. Where was I? Oh, right. It would also give the park another airtime focused coaster that feels drastically different from Intimidator and pretty much everything else in the park. I can see the ride being a similar size as the Goldstriker at California's Great America or Troy at Toverland, and having pacing like Renegade at Valleyfair. This coaster would easily become the second or third best ride in the park and push Carowinds further into the elite parks in America. Give it a similar theme to Mystic Timbers and some nice wooden structures and trees around the ride, and really make it look nice. The other idea I had was an RMC conversion of Hurler, because once again, they are missing a good wooden coaster. To make it different from Twisted Timbers, I think it would be cool if they went the Wildcat or Gwazi approach, where they don't follow the exact layout, and add on a lot of height to it. Either way they could go, they would have an absolute winner. And finally, the Golden Child Park, Cedar Point. Now this is going to be a pretty widely accepted pick, but Cedar Point desperately needs a new wooden coaster. And so I'm giving them a Gravity Group wooden twister coaster. Something like Leviathan at SeaWorld Australia would just be a perfect fit at the park, seeing as there's nothing else like it in the area. And if they really wanted to be crazy, they could add a backwards seat to the coaster just for the sake of it. Not only would it be super cool, but it would also be a completely new experience at the park. If not a wooden coaster, then the other option would be a mock extreme spinner, just due to it being something that can be put into a very compact plot of land, and it would be different enough from Wild Mouse to not feel redundant. And that's a wrap on this week's video. I have a very similar video to this one coming out next week about Six Flags, so if you're interested in that, be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you're notified when I upload a video. I'm trying to reach 300 subscribers by the end of 2023, so if you could help me out, then it would mean the world to me. That's all I have for this week, so I'll see you next time. Bye for now.